A guten Chodesh haba aleinu l'toiva. Tonight is the second day of Rosh Chodesh Iyar, the yahrzeit of Rabbi Menachem Mendel Reb Moshe Vitebsk, his yahrzeit. And he stood with rare and remarkable distinction amongst the Talmidim of the Mizritcha Maggid. The Maggid was nifter in 1772 and buried in the city of Anapol. Reb Mendele, for the next 5 years, he became, because the Balkany was standing there by the Petira, and he told his Talmud, this one should become the leader and follow after me. And if this one doesn't want it, then this one, at the end, it was Reb Mendele Vitebsker. And for 5 years, he tried to make shalom between the Misnagdim and the Hasidim. And in 1777, when he saw that he was not going to accomplish his goal, he went with his friend Rabbi Avram Kalisker, and they moved to Eretz Yisrael. The Balkany caught up to them in the city of Kamenetsky on their way to Israel, and Reb Mendele told the Balkany to turn around and go back because he was needed in the community in Russia, and not to come with them. He didn't question his Rebbe. He considered them his Rebbe. You see from the letters that he wrote, he addressed Reb Mendele, Moiri, Verabi in every single letter, and he went back to Russia. Reb Mendele came to Eretz Yisrael and moved to Tzfas, and as the Arizal writes, the Golel HaElyon, the biggest and the holiest place in northern Israel, is Tzfas. But after a half a year, he moved down to Tveria because he said that the baskol that was coming out and shouting every night in Tzfas said, Shuvu banim shovavim, and it was so intense that he couldn't sleep the hour a night that he used to sleep. So he moved down and lived in Tveria for 10.5 years. And in 1788, he was nifter and buried in Tveria. His house and his Bais Medrash, which are all in one building, one room downstairs and one room upstairs. The Bais Medrash, bigger than the room where he lived, are still there. The government wanted to knock it down because it's a very valuable building and location, right next to the water in Tveria, and they wanted to build a hotel. And they said because no one is there occupying the building, so what's the difference if we knock it down or not? So the next day, Karlin Stolen brought in a busload of Jungelite, and this was around 35 years ago, and they began a koil which remains there to this day in Reb Mendele's Bais Medrash, and they learned there, and many of them returned for Shabbos to Yerushalayim, and on Sunday returned to learn in the koil, which it remains there to accommodate and to be Mekadesh Shem Shemayim, the tzibur of everything that they do, which really saved the day. Baruch Hashem, people have had the schus to pay for the yahrzeit Suda that to this day, on the second day Rosh Chodesh Iyar, the yahrzeit, busloads come from Yerushalayim to Tveria, and they're mispalel on the kever of Reb Mendele, and then they have a very large catered festive su'uda for everyone to join them, and many sponsors saw to it that it continued for all of the years ad hayom hazeh. Zechuso yogein aleinu. Now, we know that this week's parsha is Tazria-Metzora, and there's a big debate. What is this leprosy, what we call leprosy, but it's not leprosy, it's tsaras. And some hold that it's a pure spiritual machla that has nothing to do with Gashmias. It shows up in our Gashmias, but it's not contagious. It's not like a sickness that you can catch from somebody else. But the Meshech Chochmah goes into a very, very lengthy discussion, and he held that it was contagious. That even though we all admit, he says, that it's a ruchni, another person spoke Lashon Hara, how does that make him sick physically? But because of the ruchnius, it trickled down and he became whatever happened to him. But he held that because of the level of spirituality in affecting this person, that somebody could catch it from him. And he brings rayas from the Gemara. It's a very big debate. But commonly we say, and most of the Mefarshim held, that it is not contagious because it's pure spiritual, and it's linked to tshuva and to other things which are all spiritual. It's not a physical thing. And the parsha begins with Isha ki Tazria v'yolda zochar v'tama shivas yamim kimei nigdas devosa titma. The second pasuk says v'im nekeva seiled v'tama shavuayim kenidasa. The boy, when he's born, this is all midiraisa. According to the Durabanan, we know that she has to remain separate, and she's in a state of tumah for much longer. And for a boy, it's 33 days, and for a girl, it's the additional 66 days. But midiraisa, it's 7 and 14. So the Orach Chaim HaKadosh wants to explain why it looks as if we're mistreating the girls. For a boy, it's less. For a girl, it's more. And he says, Chas v'sholom, there's no mistreatment. The feminist cannot say anything like that of criticism. Why is that? Because explains the Orach Chaim HaKadosh that a girl is a creator. That means HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Konei Shamayim Va'oretz, that it's true that there's a partnership in a child, but it's the girl who has in her body the baby and nurtures the baby with spirituality, ruchnius, and with the gashmias. That means if a woman, chas v'sholom, is drinking whiskey, it affects the child in her. She has to be careful what she eats, but it's also for ruchnius. Like it says that when a woman is expecting, she should be careful if she eats cholav stam or cholav akum an entire year, but while she's expecting, she shouldn't, because she is formulating the spirituality of the baby, and she should be sensitive to be able to bring out the best in its formation, and therefore drink only Chol of Yisrael while you are expecting. Now, the Orach Chaim HaKadosh says that there's Kedusha and there's Tumah. since the girl is a miniature creator, just like HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he gives the baby and the sustenance and the growth so does she. And when that baby leaves her body, there is a vacuum. And the vacuum is much stronger because she is a creator. She is processing a baby that's going to have a life and that's going to be a nachas ruach to the parents and to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and it departs from her. So when the kedusha of that baby leaves her, there's a bigger void that enters into the woman, and that's why she has a longer state of tumah, not because she is a second-rate human being, like some want to paint the picture as if the Torah Chas v'Sholom is not a Rachamon, but it's because of the quality and the outstanding level of Ruchnius that she becomes, when the state of Kedusha leaves, double in her posture and double in her Metzias. Now, we know that there is a tremendous discussion about the Negatzaraz. The Torah first lists and discusses about the skin, that a person suddenly sees on his skin that there's some sort of blemish, and he runs to the kohen, and the kohen is supposed to say tameh or tahor, and it's only the kohen. That means if somebody is a kohen, and let's say he is not learned, he's an Am Haaretz, but next door there is a tremendous Talmud Chacham who's not a kohen, he is not allowed to come in and take a look at the person's blemish. It must be the kohen who has the shoyrish of being able to be mashpia. As I've told you on a number of occasions, that the kohen was given by the Torah, Ko Sevarchu as Bnei Yisrael Amor Lohem, the power of being mevorech, and that bracha comes directly from the Shechina, and that's why when a kohen duchens, even he cannot look at his hands where the Shechina is coming out with, accompanying him as he says Yevarechacha. It comes in unison and projects and drenches the tzibur with bracha. And that power was given to the kohen by the Torah, and therefore not only the tzibur puts their talesim over that they shouldn't take a look at the kohen's hand, chas v'sholom, but even the kohen himself puts his hand out of the talis so that he should not be looking at it. But that power is to be able to resonate and to be able to properly diagnose whether the person is Tameh or Torah. So it has nothing to do with his level of learning. It has to do with the fact that he was born a kohen, and that the Torah gives him that power to be able to differentiate between Tameh and Tahor in a proper way, and he proclaims it. Now, the Torah first talks about his skin, and then it goes into the house, into the begodim and the house. And the Meforshim are curious. Why do you start off with the most severe? That means when a person got negatzoras, he was more upset about having it on his body than he was about the fact that it was on some of his begodim. A beged you could take off, but you can't, it's an issur d'oraisa that if he had a negatzoras on his skin and he wanted to shave it off, he becomes tahor. But it's an issur d'oraisa to do that. You're not allowed to do it. But the absence of it, it does produce tahara. So the Meforshim say that we have to realize that in Olam Hazeh, that we sometimes, to make the point of distinction and what's happening, we have to underscore the worst scenario, and then we can go to the lesser. This person who suddenly saw negatzoras on him, on his skin, had to be shaken. And the best way to do it was to cite the very first thing, even though the Torah is the opposite. It says about the skin last. But we wanted to shake him up, and that's the reason that Moshe Rabbeinu, when he came to Paro, the first thing that he talked about was Makas Bechoros. Look in Shemos. And you will see the first, he didn't talk about the Dam or about the Tzvardeya or the Kinim. He talked about the Makas Bechoros. That was the last thing to happen. But when you want to shake somebody up, you sometimes have to go to the extreme, inciting to them something that will move them and put them into a frame of mind that will get them to relate and to be willing to look and to delve into what's going on with they and their lives and their house and their family and everything with them. Now, we know this week we have two parshas. We read Tazria and Metzora. And the Haftorah is from Metzora. But the Haftorah, because some years Tazria and Metzora are not together. And the Haftorah of Tazria talks about, and I've mentioned it to you, and it's good to be reminded from time to time about this. And the Haftorah talks about Naaman Sar Tzava Aram. It was a Goyish general, and he was so mighty and so strong, and he used to devastate the enemies. They couldn't stand up to him. And why is this Haftorah there? Because Naaman, this mighty person, suddenly got tzoras, and it was eating away in his skin, and he was going out of his mind. So they said to him, why don't you go into Eretz Yisrael to Elisha, the Navi, because we heard he heals people. So it got to a point that he couldn't take it anymore, and he went. He went to Elisha, and as the Haftorah tells us, he came in and he took a seat waiting to go into the room with Elisha. And the Gabbai, Gechazi, went in and told Elisha that Naaman, the Sar Tzava Aram, is here and he has a problem. And Elisha told him, go out and tell him that he should go to the Yarden and dip in his body, be toivel, 7 times, and everything will be fine. So the assistant, the shamus, went back out and told Naaman. And Naaman ran out and said, I don't need your opinion, I don't need your advice, and I don't need your help. And he went back home. But he still had the tzaras. And the pasuk tells us that it got so bad that he went down to the Yarden and he dipped in and he came out without a drop of tzaras on his body. But he was reeking in such pain and sorrow. Before that, the Meforshim are curious. He got an eitzah, he was given advice. Why didn't he run and get rid of the problem? But the answer is that sometimes the ego can be so present that even the pain and the suffering will not change the person's frame of mind and attitude and become humbled to some level. He ran out and said, you send me out your assistant to tell me what I should do? I am Naaman, Sar Tzava Aram. I don't need your eitzah. And he chose to be reeking in pain. Look at the psukim, what was going on with him. But he wasn't going to give in. His ego did not allow. How much pain and difficulty do we put ourselves into positions of and remain in it because we insist on not budging an inch from what we cover up, we masquerade it under the oh no, out of principle, I'm not doing this because I'm only doing it because this is principle. And the person suffers and suffers. And like the Chofetz Chaim told someone who lost Nebuch, he was fighting bitterly. It's a famous story. The two Yidden had a machloikis and it got worse and worse and worse. And the Chofetz Chaim warned them that they should both back off and calm down. But one of them said to the Chofetz Chaim, he said, oh, I am not backing down. This guy, I mean, I'm 100% right in that. And he continued, and Nebuch lo aleinu lo aleichem. He lost a child. And the Chofetz Chaim said, I'm warning you, I'm begging you, back down. And he said, and the Chofetz Chaim said, you just lost a child. And he answered the Chofetz Chaim and said, I don't care if I lose all my children. I am not backing down. And he lost all of his children, one after another. Stubbornness, ego, stupidity. Gave up a family because he had to have the last word and was not going to budge an inch. How foolish human frailty can be. Now, we know that the Zohar HaKadosh says that in Parshas Eikev, that the Kohen would come. The first time the pasuk says Vehera el HaKohen, he goes and he shows it to the Kohen. The second time when he's still in trouble, it went on to the Begodim. Then it says Vehuva el HaKohen. Because why is he getting this tzaras? He's getting it to do tshuva. And if he's not doing the tshuva, then he has to be woken up. Because his attitude is wanting. There's something missing. There's something wrong. So if he's not getting the message, v'huva el hakohen, he is brought to the kohen. That doesn't mean that they drag him. But the mere fact that he has to so publicly be demeaned, and that they have to come in and say, you have to now go over with us to the kohen, he has to look at it, was because he did not get the message. He did not get the message. And the Zohar Kodesh says, what's the difference between the word nega and oineg? The whole difference is not the nun and gimel, that stays in the same place. But nega has an ayin at the end. But oineg puts the ayin in the front. And that's how the Chidushei Arim teaches the pasuk. Vehine lo hafach hanega, that the ein hanega, that the ayin of the nega didn't go from nega and become oineg, but it remained the same place and remains a nega. And that is because we know that it's not only Lashon Hara. Look in the Mishnah in Erechin. You will see that there's 7 reasons why Negat Tzaras comes to a person. And one of them is Tzaras Ha'ayin. What does that mean? It means stinginess. Now when we say stingy, we right away think it's talking about money. Money, stinginess. But the Meforshim all say that's not so. Because you can be passing on the street a tzabrocha yid, someone who was depressed, disappointed, and he respects you, or at least likes you. So when you pass him and you smile and say, have a great day, be matzliach, you can take that person's sadness and you can change it into happiness. You can, for 5 minutes, make the man happy and feel choshev, feel special. But there's some people who say, oh, I know I could smile, but that takes 15 seconds. I'm not in the mood, I don't want to be bothered. That's what the Meforshim say it means. That even for a good word or a smile, he's stingy. That he can't come across and uplift an atmosphere. We all know that when somebody is funny, a joker, that when you come and you say hello to him, that within a minute you're going to hear something you'll be smiling about. That's because a person can change your mood and uplift your mood. And that's what the Tzaras Ha'ayin is in Erechin, that they say that stinginess is money, but it's also all of these things that affect people that he lives in his 70 years, his 80 years, his 100 years in Olam Hazeh, that he can be busy bringing a smile. And there's someone in shul by us who walks around when people are collecting money, and he goes with them and he gives out $1 to the people to give to the person collecting. And one of the reasons he does it is, number one, he doesn't want anyone to leave the Beis HaMedrash without the schus of tzedakah, that we know that tzedakah is mevi geula, and it's tatzil mimaves. It's the only mitzvah that it says those 2 things on. It doesn't say if someone is a Shomer Shabbos and has Kedusha Shabbos and Oineg Shabbos, that he's Mevi Geula, or he is tatzel mimaves, but by tzedakah it says it. So number one, he doesn't want anyone to leave without the schus of tzedakah. But another reason is he wants to bring the smile to the collector. Imagine if someone has to go around, one guy goes like this to him, I don't have money. He has money to go into the store and take a coffee and take a Danish for $6 or $8, but he can't give even a quarter to the person or $1 to the person. But he doesn't do it. And when a person collects, he gets plenty of bizyonis from people that don't want to give and are bothered that they're being even asked. I say it's like turning down the lottery ticket. To his doorstep, he has the schus and the ability to have such a heavenly mitzvah that we know that it's even higher than all the mitzvahs. The Zohar Kodesh says that it's like between the Vav and the K. The Vav is Torah and the Hey is all the mitzvahs. In between, the Kri and Ksiv is tzedakah. But to bring a smile to this person who has to go, because once he goes and he sees that every person he's being taken to they're being handed $1 to give it to him. So it brings a big smile to them at some point. We have to recondition our schedules that, well, no, I'm too busy, I don't have the time, someone's waiting for me, to take the 15 seconds to say the warm good morning or the warm hello or the warm compliment or something to uplift the spirit of someone else. Don't become tsaras ha'ayin, as it says. But the Chidush Arim says that when a person gets the message that he's in trouble, he can take the ayin from nega and put it hafach ha-nega. Hafach es ein. Ein is the ayin. Doesn't just mean the I, it means the ayin itself, the letter ayin, to go from the end to the very beginning. Now, we know that there are different types of lashon hara, unfortunately, that the parsha of Metzora starts that a person has to bring 2 tziporim. And the Gemara in Yuma has a big discussion, because when does the Torah usually say that we could bring birds? It's if you can't afford the regular korban, the animal, whatever the reason is, it's a substitute. Now, it says that the Gemara asks a shaila, what happens in these cases if a rich man who could afford the korban doesn't bring the korban? And he chooses a bird like the poor people do. Is he yoitza or not? And the Gemara concludes and says that by all the places that it says, V'imdalu, that for a per person he could bring a bird, he could do this, that if the rich guy does that, he still gets a kapara, except for one place, and that's by our parsha. That if a rich man brings the tziporim instead of a regular korban, he's not yoitza. Because the fabric of what's making him, he's a rich man, so he can afford the animal. But he's bringing the poor is because of what the reason that saras comes to a person. That he's either stingy or he's stingy in his attitude. And over here, this whole business with a Metzora and with saras is to change the person, starting with his attitude and outlook, trickle down to his daily, hourly life. And if he didn't get the message and is still stingy, because it's with money today, it's with attitude tomorrow, he is not Yoitza because he missed the whole point. He didn't do exactly what this whole Indian is about in behaving and dealing with people. Now the Medrash says a story that there was a rochel. A rochel means somebody who goes from town to town to sell his wares. That's his parnasa. What does a rochel do? He goes from house to house and he brings his things. And the Medrash says that there was a rochel who came into town and he made an announcement that I have elixir. Elixir means some potency, some item that you can drink. And I have elixir for long life. If somebody wants to live long, add on years. So the people came running to the center of the city. They wanted to see what is he selling and to buy it and to get long life. So when everyone came, the Medrash says he gave a clap and he announced, Mi ha'ish hechofetz chayim oyev yamim liros tov netzor l'shon chameira. And the Medrash says that Rav Yanai, who was an Amoira, and he was standing there, he was in shock. He said, what? I never realized. What do you mean he never realized? This is a pasuk in Tillim. Every child knows this pasuk. What was the chiddush? What was the tremendous, earth-shattering, thundering message of this roichel that even Rav Yanai was in a state of shock? So I said to you, I think 2 years ago, that the reason, the simple pshat the Mefarshim say is, what is a rochel? He has to knock on a door of a house and say, I have things here that I want to show you. I hope you'll buy something. But he doesn't start off with that. He starts off, oh, did you hear what happened? I'm just coming from a town. Did you hear what happened to Shloima Greenbaum? And to this one? In other words, he engages in gossip to get their interest, and then he introduces his products. So the Mefarshim say that Rav Yanai thought that a person to be able to be zoicha to long life, nitzar l'shon chameira, is keep your mouth shut. Don't talk ever. The Chavetz Chaim, who wrote more Sforim and talked more about no lashon hara to the people, he was always talking. He was always talking. People came in and discussed this and discussed that, and he was the one that never in his life he never talked lashon hara, and he wrote the Sforim about lashon hara. So everyone thought that to be careful, and netzor l'shon chameira, like a monk that moves on top of a mountain and he separates himself from the whole world and doesn't have anything to do with Gashmias. We hold the opposite, that all the Gashmias is given to us to enjoy, but to elevate. Yes, you can eat a steak every day of your life, but have the kavanas of achila while you're eating it, to make a proper bracha, a bracha achroina. And if you're a little bit more aware of the neshamas in the food and what to be mechaven while you're chewing and while you're eating, like the Skolio Rebbe Zecher Tzedek V'Kodesh Levracha once said by Shalashudis that the night before he had a dream, and he did this very often. He did it almost by every Shalashudis or Kiddush, and he said that the night before he had a dream, and he discussed with his Zayda one of the psukim of that week's parsha in the dream. And he noticed behind his Zayda were like 1,000 neshamas in the crowd. So he asked the Zayda, who are these neshamas? So his Zayda, the Baal Shem Tov, answered him and said, those neshamas are the ones that you were mala, that you picked up and brought back to their source while you were chewing and eating the foods of Olam Hazeh. So we see that it's a life of avodah, but that doesn't mean we can't eat the steak. That doesn't mean that we can't be married and that there is a fragrance of enjoyment, but it's done l'shem shamayim. We're here for Doros Mevorach, that we are able to continue the shalshelis of Klal Yisrael. That's what Esav asked Yaakov. But he saw Vayaris Hanoshim Ves Hayeladim. He said, oh, you were wanted always the brachas and the ruchnias. What's all these women that you have here? So Yaakov Avinu answered and said, it's not the women, it's Hayeladim Asher Chonan Elokim Esavdecha. We are here in this world to continue Klal Yisrael, and we have a purpose in everything that we do in the Gashmias of this world. So that is how the Meforshim explained why Rav Yanai was so shocked. Because he said, what? You can be going from house to house and talking and talking and talking and still be a Netzor Lashon Chameira? That was the shock that they all had. That a person whose whole job is talking and gossiping can prevent with the talking and draw the line. But I want to tell you tonight something that is different. You see, when we say the pasuk, Mi ha'ish hachafetz chayim, ohev yamim liros tov, we think that that's where the question mark comes. Mi ha'ish, we're asking a question. Mi ha'ish hachafetz chayim, ohev yamim, because he wants to enjoy his days, liros tov. That's the end of the question. And then we answer Netzor Lashon Chameira. But there are Meforshim who say no. The question ends by Miha Ish HaChafetz Chaim. And the answer is Ohev Yamim Liros Tov. That when you have an eye that sees the good in everything, you're not the constant critic and always coming up with the negativity. That's the Oyev Yamim Liros Tov. You see the good, then you're going to end up with Miho Ish HaChafetz Chaim. You're going to end up with life and longevity to be able to enjoy the days with Arichas Yamim Vishonim Tovos. Now, the question is asked, you know that we are told that if a person sees the neged sara'as in the house, he has to knock down the house. And the pasuk says that when they came into Eretz Canaan, and they came into the houses, and if there was chas v'shalom sara'as, so he has to destroy his house. But it was really a bracha, because as Rashi brings the Chazal, that when he destroyed the house, that there was the custom of the Canaanim that they didn't have banks, so where did they put their gold, their silver, their money? In the walls. So when he destroyed the house, he found a treasure. So the Meforshim ask, if there was tzara'as found, isn't it supposed to be a punishment? What kind of punishment if he had to knock down the house that was worth $200,000 and he found a treasure inside worth $700,000? So that's called a punishment? So the answer is, they say, that upheaval in a person's life is sometimes the only way that he does tshuva. That means nebuch, a person a whole year doesn't say Tillim. Doesn't say Tillim. He davens, he learns, he gives tzedakah, he brings food for aniyim. But he never opens up a Tillim. And it says that Tillim is a link to mamish neshama sheben neshama that he possesses, that the words, and that's why Tillim is worldwide. I mean, you have people that say every day some kapitel in Tillim, some people say the whole book, some say on Shabbos Mevorachim, but it's Tillim. They don't take out a Koheles or a Shir Hashem, which is Kodesh Kedoshim, also part of the Chav Daled Kisvei Kodesh, but they take out a Tillim. And unfortunately, this person who doesn't say Tillim, if he gets a phone call, Chas v'sholem lo aleinu 1,000 times, lo aleinu lo aleichem, a call, oh, your son was just hit by a car, and we don't know if he's going to live. Uh-oh. That person is suddenly running to give the tzedakah, and he's running to grab a Tillim and cry and daven and beg. So the upheaval puts a person into a state or a frame of mind that wakes them up. And unfortunately, it should never have to come, that we should not have to have upheaval in our lives to be able to wake us up. We should wake up each day and say, let me do the slightest thing I didn't do yesterday. It doesn't have to be from learning a blot Gemara to 100 blot. It can be a blot with 5 more lines. It can be having given dinner for 5 people for the last 20 years. Add on 1 person. Grow with it, not with the upheaval, but because you're waking yourself up to live with quality and to be able to bring out the best in you. And that's what we hope for, that it shouldn't have to be the upheaval and the tsaras that comes to the person with the pain, with the problem, with the embarrassment. I mean, at the end, if he didn't get the message on the house and on the clothes, then it comes on to his skin, he has to get away. We put him chutz lamachana. I mean, this is public. This is public. This isn't like going into a hospital that a person, Nebuch became sick, he needs a hospital. That's not a reflection of Aveira, but Tzaras is. So we hope that we will wake up, and that's why, as the entire story of life is, everything is for the better. Because even if today we see it as a tragedy, that at some point of life, or liyasud lavo, then the curtain opens and we see all the reasons of why that neshama, for its good. And that's why he discovers the treasure. You think it's a calamity, your house where your family is and everything is. You had to break down your house, a tragedy. But as every tragedy in life, at the end we see the treasure. A freilichen chodesh haba aleinu letoiva, And the Eibush is a Halfen Chodesh Iyar, which has every day of it Sphira, which not even Nisan has the koyach of such powerful days that it's like a grenade. It's like putting a bomb off by pushing the button, by just saying the words of the counting, incorporates the metamorphosis, the transformation of our neshamas under that umbrella of chesed shebegvura and of all the different ingredients which each and every day is incorporated with, and that works on the process of actually changing the person. A gute Nacht and a good Woche.